Struggling single mom Autumn Hayes never imagined her life would change overnight, until billionaire Damian Crawford made her an offer, 1 year of marriage in exchange for financial security. But as their fake marriage turns dangerously real, will love rewrite their contract? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The alarm clock blared at 5:30 a.m. and Autumn Hayes groaned as she reached over to silence it. Her small apartment was still dark, the early morning light barely peeking through the worn curtains. After a moment of allowing herself to wish for more sleep, she swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood up. Another day, another dollar, she whispered to herself, running her fingers through her tangled brown hair. The apartment was quiet as she padded to the bathroom, careful not to wake Elliot. Her 5-year-old son was still sound asleep in the small bedroom they shared. Autumn glanced at his sleeping form, his blonde curls splayed across the pillow, and felt her heart swell with love despite her exhaustion. 30 minutes later, freshly showered and dressed in her waitress uniform, Autumn was in the kitchen making breakfast. The bills spread across the kitchen table caught her eye, and she frowned. The past due notices were becoming more frequent, and the daycare had increased its rates again. "Mommy?" Elliot's sleepy voice came from the doorway. Autumn turned, forcing a bright smile. "Good morning, sunshine. Ready for breakfast?" Elliot nodded, rubbing his eyes as he climbed onto a chair at the table. "Can I have dinosaur pancakes?" "Not today, buddy. We're running late. How about cereal? I'll make dinosaur pancakes this weekend, promise." The disappointment on his little face broke her heart, but she quickly distracted him by talking about his upcoming day at kindergarten. As they ate, Autumn mentally calculated how much overtime she'd need to work to cover this month's bills. "Will you pick me up today?" Elliot asked, milk dribbling down his chin. Autumn wiped it away with a napkin. "Mrs. Rodriguez will pick you up, remember? Mommy has to work late tonight." "But you always work late," he pouted. "I know, sweetie. But remember." "Why, so we can save up for that big trip to Disney World someday," she reminded him, using their dream vacation as motivation. The truth was, Disney World seemed as unattainable as a trip to the moon at this point. After dropping Elliot off at school, Autumn rushed to her first job at Sunnyside Diner. The morning rush was already in full swing, and her boss, Frank, gave her a stern look as she tied her apron. "You're 5 minutes late, Hayes." "Sorry, Frank, Elliot was moving slowly this morning." Frank's face softened slightly. He had a soft spot for single parents. "Just don't make it a habit. Table 7 needs coffee." The morning passed in a blur of coffee refills, breakfast orders, and forced smiles. By noon, Autumn's feet were already aching, but she still had 6 hours to go, followed by her evening shift at the convenience store. During her break, Autumn sat in the back alley of the diner, counting her tips. Not bad for a Monday, but still not enough. Her phone buzzed with a text from her ex-husband, Ryan. "Can't make child support this month, sorry. We'll make it up." Autumn stared at the message, anger and disappointment washing over her. She should have expected it. Ryan had been making it up for the past 3 years. His promises were as empty as her bank account. "Everything okay?" Tina, another waitress, asked as she stepped outside for a cigarette. Autumn quickly wiped away a stray tear. "Yeah, fine. Just the usual deadbeat dad situation." Tina clicked her tongue sympathetically. "Men, can't live with them, can't shoot them." They both laughed, but Autumn's heart wasn't in it. "You know," Tina said, blowing smoke away from Autumn, "my cousin did this thing. She signed up for one of those dating services that match regular people with rich folks. Ended up marrying some older guy with money. Now she lives in a mansion in Connecticut." "What? Like a sugar daddy service?" Autumn asked, wrinkling her. Tina shrugged. "Call it what you want, but she's not worrying about paying her electric bill. I'd rather struggle with dignity than sell myself," Autumn replied firmly, standing up as her break ended. "Just saying, sometimes pride don't pay the bills," Tina called after her. The conversation stuck with Autumn throughout her shift. Not that she would ever consider such a thing, but what wouldn't she do for Elliot? The question haunted her as she served plates of fries and burgers to customers who didn't even look at her. Evening came, and Autumn rushed to pick up Elliot from Mrs. Rodriguez, their elderly neighbor who watched him after school. Elliot was already half asleep, and Autumn felt guilty about dragging him to the convenience store for her night shift. I'm sorry, buddy. Just 3 hours and then we'll go home, she promised, setting him up with coloring books in the back room of the store. Mr. Patel, the store owner, was understanding about Autumn's situation and allowed Elliot to stay in the storeroom during her shift. It wasn't ideal, but she had no other options. Around 9 p.m., the store was empty, except for a customer in an expensive-looking suit browsing the wine section. Autumn was restocking cigarettes behind the counter when the bell above the door jingled. 3 young men in hoodies entered, their faces partially obscured. Autumn felt a chill run down her spine. Something wasn't right. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. The tallest one approached the counter. "Empty the register. Now." Autumn's heart raced. Elliot was in the back room. "Look, we don't keep much cash here. I said now." The man pulled out a gun, pointing it directly at her. The man in the suit, who had been quietly observing from the wine aisle, suddenly spoke up. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." All eyes turned to him. He stood calmly, a bottle of expensive bourbon in one hand, his posture relaxed but somehow intimidating. "Mind your own business, man," one of the robbers snapped. The suit-wearing stranger didn't flinch. "The police are already on their way. The silent alarm was triggered when you entered." Autumn hadn't triggered any alarm, but she kept her face expressionless, playing along. "You're bluffing," the man with the gun said. But uncertainty had crept into his voice. "Am I?" The stranger checked his watch. "I'd say you have about 60 seconds before this place is surrounded." "Your choice." The 3 men exchanged glances, then the leader cursed. "Let's go." They rushed out of the store, nearly knocking over a display in their haste. Autumn's legs gave out and she sank to the floor behind the counter, her heart pounding. The stranger approached, setting the bourbon on the counter. "Are you all right, Miss Hayes?" "Autumn Hayes," she managed, standing on shaky legs. "And yes, I'm fine, thank you." He nodded. "Damien Crawford. There wasn't actually a silent alarm, was there?" Autumn shook her head. "No. Mr. Patel can't afford that kind of security system." "Mommy!" Elliot's small voice came from the back room. He stood in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. "I heard loud voices." Autumn rushed to him, kneeling to hug him tightly. "Everything's fine, sweetie. Just some rude customers." Damien Crawford watched the interaction with interest. "Your son?" "Yes," Autumn replied, suddenly conscious of how unprofessional she must look with her child at work. "I don't usually bring him, but my babysitter cancelled and—" "No explanation needed," Damien interrupted, his voice softer than before. He reached into his wallet and handed Autumn a business card. "If you ever need a better-paying job, give me a call." Before Autumn could respond, he placed a $100 bill on the counter next to the bourbon. "Keep the change." And with that, he was gone, leaving Autumn staring at the business card in her hand. "Damien Crawford, CEO, Crawford Enterprises," she read aloud. The next morning, after another restless night worrying about what could have happened at the store, Autumn was back at the diner. She kept thinking about the mysterious Damien Crawford and his offer. Better pay would change everything for her and Elliot. "Earth to Autumn," Frank called, snapping her out of her thoughts. "Order up for table 12, as she delivered plates of pancakes to a family of 4. Autumn couldn't help but envy their normalcy. A mother, father, and 2 kids, all enjoying breakfast together. It was the life she had once imagined for herself and Elliot. At the end of her shift, curiosity got the better of her. She Googled Damien Crawford on her phone and was stunned by the results. Forbes articles, business news, society pages. He wasn't just rich, he was one of the wealthiest men in the city. His family company, Crawford Enterprises, was a real estate development. "Empire worth billions. What would someone like him want with someone like me?" she murmured. 2 days later, after much internal debate, Autumn dialed the number on the business card. To her surprise, she was immediately connected to Damien himself. Crawford speaking. Hello. This is Autumn Hayes, from the convenience store the other night." There was a pause. "Ms. Hayes, I was beginning to think you wouldn't call." "I've been busy," she replied, then winced at how defensive she sounded. "Of course. Are you interested in my offer?" "What exactly is the offer?" "Your card just said to call about a job." I prefer to discuss business in person. Are you free this evening, say 7 o'clock? Autumn hesitated. I'd need to bring my son. I can't afford a sitter on short notice. That's not a problem. I'll send a car for you both. Before she could argue, he continued, text this number your address. The driver's name is Thomas. He's very trustworthy. 2 hours later, Autumn found herself sitting in the back of a luxury sedan with Elliot, driving through neighborhoods she usually only saw in magazines. Elliot was wide-eyed, pressing his face against the window as they passed massive homes with manicured lawns. "Mommy, are we going to a castle?" he asked. The driver, Thomas, chuckled from the front seat. "Close enough, young man." Damien Crawford's home was indeed castle-like, a sprawling mansion set back from the road, with a circular driveway and fountains on either side of the main entrance. Autumn felt increasingly out of place in her simple dress and worn flats. Thomas escorted them to the door, which was opened by a woman in her 60s wearing a housekeeper's uniform. "Ms. Hayes and young Mr. Elliot," Thomas announced. "Here to see Mr. Crawford." "Of course," the woman said with a warm smile. "I'm Mrs. Winters. Mr. Crawford is waiting in the study, and I've prepared some cookies and milk in the kitchen for the young gentleman, if that's acceptable." Autumn looked at Elliot, who was practically bouncing with excitement at the mention of cookies. "That's very kind, thank you." Mrs. Winters took Elliot's hand. "We'll be just down the hall if you need anything." Autumn was then led to a large study filled with books and expensive-looking furniture. Damien Crawford rose from behind a desk as she entered. "Ms. Hayes, thank you for coming," he said, gesturing to a chair across from his desk. "Mr. Crawford," she nodded, sitting stiffly on the edge of the seat. "You mentioned a job offer." "Yes, but first, can I offer you a drink, water, coffee, something stronger?" "Water is fine," she replied, trying to hide her nervousness. As he poured water from a crystal decanter, Damien studied her. "You're probably wondering why I asked you here." The thought crossed my mind. "I'm not exactly executive material." "Don't sell yourself short, Ms. Hayes. What I saw the other night was a woman with remarkable composure under pressure." He handed her the water. "But you're right that I'm not offering you a conventional job." Autumn's guard went up immediately. "If this is something inappropriate—" "It's not what you're thinking," he interrupted, returning to his seat. "It's a proposition of a different kind. I need a wife." Autumn nearly choked on her water. "Excuse me?" "A temporary wife," Damien clarified, his expression completely serious. "For 1 year, with very specific terms and conditions. Is this some kind of joke? I assure you it's not." He leaned forward, clasping his hands on the desk. "My grandfather's will stipulates that I must be married by my 40th birthday in order to maintain controlling interest in Crawford Enterprises. That birthday is in 3 months." Autumn stared at him, waiting for the punchline. When none came, she laughed nervously. "And you're asking me, a complete stranger?" "That's exactly why. You have no connections to my social circle. No one would suspect the arrangement isn't genuine." "This is crazy," Autumn said, standing up. "I should go." "Before you leave, hear my offer," Damien said calmly. 1 year of marriage. During that time, you and your son would live here with all expenses paid. You would attend necessary social functions as my wife. In return, I would provide you with $2 million upon completion of the year, plus a house in your name and a college fund for Elliot. Autumn sank back into the chair, stunned by the figure. $2 million? And financial security for your son, Damien added. No more working 3 jobs. No more struggling to make ends meet. "Why me?" she asked, still trying to process the offer. "You're intelligent, composed in a crisis, and clearly devoted to your son. Also, you're not affiliated with any of my competitors who might try to use this situation to their advantage." Autumn's mind raced. The money would change everything for her and Elliot. They could have a real home, not a cramped apartment with faulty heating. Elliot could go to a good school. She could even finish her degree. "What would be expected of me exactly?" she asked carefully. "Public appearances as my wife, living here at the estate, maintaining the appearance of a genuine marriage." Damien's gaze was direct. "Nothing physical would be required or expected. And after the year, a quiet, amicable divorce. You take the money and the house and we go our separate ways. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. I'd need time to think about this. Of course, Damien agreed, handing her a folder. Here's everything in writing. Take a few days to review it. Autumn took the folder, her hands slightly shaking. I should get Elliot home. It's a school night. Thomas will drive you, Damien said, standing. One more thing, Ms. Hayes. This offer. Here's contingent on absolute discretion. No one can know the true nature of our arrangement. As Thomas drove them home, Elliot chatted excitedly about the giant house and the nice cookie lady. Autumn barely heard him, her mind fixed on Damien Crawford's outrageous proposal. A fake marriage for a fortune. It was madness. But as they pulled up to their rundown apartment building, with its broken security door and graffiti-covered walls, Autumn clutched the folder to her chest. Madness or not, she knew she would seriously consider his offer. For Elliot's sake, for a chance at a better life. Autumn spent the next 3 days in a state of constant indecision. During her shifts at the diner, she found herself zoning out, thinking about Damien Crawford's offer while mechanically refilling coffee cups. At night, after tucking Elliot into bed, she would take out the folder and review the contract again. $2 million. A house, a college fund for Elliot. All for pretending to be married to a stranger for 1 year. It sounded like something from a movie, not real life. Certainly not her life. On the third day, as she was getting ready for work, the landlord knocked. "It's on her door. Rent's late, Hayes," he said gruffly, not bothering with pleasantries. 3 days late now. "I know, Mr. Geller. I get paid tomorrow. I promise I'll have it then." The middle-aged man crossed his arms. "That's what you said last month, and I still got it a week late. I'm running a business here, not a charity." "Please," Autumn said, lowering her voice so Elliot wouldn't hear from the bathroom where he was brushing his teeth. "Just one more day." Mr. Geller's expression hardened. "One more day. Then I start the eviction process. I've got people waiting for apartments in this building, people who pay on time." After he left, Autumn leaned against the door, fighting back, tears. She had exactly $43 in her checking account. The rent was $950. Even with tomorrow's paycheck, she would still be short. "Mommy? Was that the mean man again?" Elliot asked, emerging from the bathroom with toothpaste on his chin. Autumn quickly wiped her eyes and plastered on a smile. "Just Mr. Geller checking in. Come on, let's get that toothpaste off your face." As she dropped Elliot at school, watching him run to join his friends, Autumn made her decision. She waited until her lunch break, then called the number on Damien's card. "I'll do it," she said when he answered, not bothering with small talk. There was a pause. "You're certain?" "Yes." Her voice was steadier than she felt. "But I have some conditions of my own." "I'm listening." "Elliot's happiness comes first. If at any point this arrangement negatively affects him, I walk away. Money. Or no money." "Agreed," Damien replied without hesitation. "And I want some of the money up front, enough to pay off my debts and have a small cushion. The rest can wait until the end of the year." "That seems reasonable." "Anything else?" Autumn took a deep breath. "I need to understand why. Not the inheritance part, but why you haven't just found someone real to marry, someone you actually love." The line went silent for so long that Autumn thought they'd been disconnected. "That's complicated," Damien finally said, "and not relevant to our arrangement." "It is to me," Autumn insisted. "I'm about to upend my life and my son's life for this. I need to know what I'm walking into." Another long pause. "My schedule is full today. How about dinner tonight? Bring Elliot. We can discuss the details, and he can get more comfortable with the house before you move in." Autumn agreed, and that evening found herself once again in the back of Damien's luxury sedan with an excited Elliot. "Are we going to see the cookie lady again?" Elliot asked as they drove through the ornate gates of the Crawford estate. "Her name is Mrs. Winters," Autumn reminded him gently. "And yes, I think she'll be there." When they arrived, Mrs. Winters was indeed waiting, and she greeted Elliot like an old friend. "I made chocolate chip cookies just for you, young man," she said, taking his hand. "And Mr. Crawford said you might like to see the game room while your mother talks to him." Elliot's eyes widened. "A game room? Like video games?" "Video games, board games, and I believe there's even a small bowling alley," Mrs. Winters said with a wink at Autumn. "Can I, Mum, please?" Elliot begged. Looking at her son's excited face, Autumn felt a mixture of emotions. This could be his life, a life of comfort and opportunities she could never provide on her own. "Of course, sweetie. I'll come find you after I talk to Mr. Crawford." Damien was waiting in a formal dining room that could have seated 20, but was set for just 3. He stood as Autumn entered, dressed more casually than at their previous meeting, though his version of casual was still an outfit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "Ms. Hayes," he greeted her. "I hope the drive was comfortable." "It was fine, thank you," she replied, taking the seat he offered. "Elliot is with Mrs. Winters. She's quite taken with him, said he reminds her of her grandson." A server appeared with a bottle of wine, but Autumn declined. "Just water for me, please. I need a clear head for this conversation." Once they were alone, Damien studied her across the table. "You wanted to know why I haven't found a real wife." "Yes." He swirled the wine in his glass before answering. "The simple answer is that love complicates business. I've seen what happens when emotion influences financial decisions." "That sounds lonely," Autumn observed. "It's practical," he countered. "My father married for love. When she left him for someone else, he was so devastated that he nearly ran the company into the ground. I won't make the same mistake." "So you've never been in love?" A shadow crossed his face. "Once. It didn't end well." "What happened?" "She was more interested in the Crawford name and fortune than in me," he said flatly. "I discovered she was feeding information to a competitor. Corporate espionage disguised as affection." Autumn winced. "I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a valuable lesson." He set down his glass. "Now, about our arrangement. I've had my lawyers revise the contract based on our conversation. You'll receive $100,000 up front, with the remainder upon completion of the term." As they discussed the details over dinner, Autumn found herself studying Damien when he wasn't looking. Despite his cold exterior, there was something compelling about him, a hint of vulnerability beneath the power and wealth. By the time dessert arrived, they had reached an agreement. They would marry within 2 weeks, in a small civil ceremony. A larger reception would follow for Damien's business associates and social circle. Autumn and Elliot would move into the mansion immediately after the civil ceremony. "And what's our story?" Autumn asked. "How did the billionaire and the waitress meet and fall in love?" Damien considered this. "We'll keep it close to the truth. We met when some men tried to rob the store where you were working. I intervened, we got talking, and there was an immediate connection." "A whirlwind romance," Autumn said with a touch of irony. "People love those stories," Damien replied. "No one will question it too deeply." After finalizing the details, Autumn went to find Elliot in the game room. She found him engrossed in a video game with Mrs. Winters cheering him on. "Mom, this place is awesome," Elliot exclaimed when he saw her. "They have every game ever." "It is pretty amazing," Autumn agreed, smiling at his enthusiasm. "But it's getting late. Buddy, time to say thank you to Mrs. Winters." As they prepared to leave, Damien appeared in the doorway. He had been so formal with Autumn that she was surprised to see him kneel down to Elliot's level. "Did you enjoy the game room?" he asked. Elliot nodded enthusiastically. "It's the coolest place ever." "Well, I have some news that might make you even happier," Damien said, glancing up at Autumn for permission to continue. When she nodded, he turned back to Elliot. "Your mom and I have been talking, and soon you and your mom are going to come live here." Elliot's jaw dropped. "For real? For how long?" "For a whole year," Damien said. "Maybe longer." "But why?" Elliot asked, looking confused. Autumn stepped in, kneeling beside Damien. "Well, sweetheart, Mr. Crawford and I are going to get married." Elliot's eyes widened. "Married? Like you'll be his wife?" "That's right," Autumn said, trying to gauge his reaction. Elliot was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Then he looked at Damien with surprising seriousness for a 5-year-old. "Are you going to be my new dad?" The question hung in the air. Autumn held her breath, unsure how Damien would respond. "I would be your stepfather," Damien said carefully. "But I know you already have a dad, and I wouldn't try to replace him." Elliot considered this. "My dad doesn't come see me much. He's always busy." Autumn's heart broke a little at the matter-of-fact way Elliot stated this truth. "Well," Damien said, "I'm a pretty busy man too, but I'd make time for you and your mom. That's what family does." Autumn was surprised by the sincerity in his voice. It was the first time he'd shown any real emotion since she'd met him. On the drive home, Elliot bombarded Autumn with questions about their new living arrangement. Would he get his own room? Could he bring his toys? Would there be other kids to play with? "Mr. Crawford seems nice," Elliot said finally, as they neared their apartment. "Not scary like I thought rich people would be." "He does seem nice," Autumn agreed, wondering if that assessment would prove true in the long run. The next 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. Autumn gave notice at both her jobs, paid off her rent and other outstanding bills with the advance Damien had provided, and started packing up their small apartment. Her co-workers at the diner threw her a surprise party on her last day, complete, with a cake that read, "Congratulations, Cinderella." "I can't believe you're marrying Damien Crawford," Tina said, shaking her head in amazement. "How did you even meet him?" Autumn stuck to the story she and Damien had agreed upon. "He came into the convenience store during an attempted robbery. It sounds crazy, but we just connected." "Girl, you hit the jackpot," another waitress, Jade, said. "Have you seen his place yet?" "Once," Autumn replied, trying to sound casual. "It's big." She felt guilty lying to her friends, but what choice did she have? No one would understand the real nature of her arrangement with Damien. The day of the civil ceremony arrived, and Autumn found herself in a simple white dress, standing in a judge's chambers with Elliot by her side and Damien across from her. The only other attendees were Mrs. Winters, who had become fast friends with Elliot, and Damien's lawyer, a stern-looking woman named Victoria Reed. As they exchanged vows, Autumn was struck by the surreal nature of the situation. She was marrying a man she barely knew for money. It felt like a scene from someone else's life. "By the power vested in me by the state, I now pronounce you husband and wife," the judge declared. "You may kiss the bride." Autumn hadn't discussed this part with Damien. Their contract mentioned nothing about physical affection. For a moment, they stared at each other awkwardly. Then Damien leaned in and placed a gentle, brief kiss on her lips. It was perfunctory, yet something fluttered in Autumn's stomach, something she immediately tried to ignore. "Yay!" Elliot cheered, oblivious to the adult's discomfort. "Now we get to live in the castle." Outside the courthouse, Damien's car was waiting, as Thomas loaded their few suitcases into the trunk. Autumn took one last look at her old life. She was now Mrs. Crawford, at least on paper. "Ready?" Damien asked, holding the car door open for her. "As I'll ever be," Autumn replied, taking Elliot's hand and stepping into their new life. Moving into the Crawford mansion was like stepping into another world. Autumn and Elliot were given a full tour by Mrs. Winters, who showed them to their rooms in the east wing of the house. "This is my room?" Elliot gasped, staring at the spacious bedroom with a custom-built race car bed, shelves filled with toys, and a large-screen TV. "It's bigger than our whole apartment. Mr. Crawford had it prepared specially for you," Mrs. Winters explained. "He asked what you might like." Autumn was touched by this thoughtfulness. It was more consideration than she'd expected from a man who saw their marriage as merely a business transaction. Her own suite was equally impressive, a large bedroom connected to a sitting room and a bathroom that was bigger than her previous kitchen. The closet was already filled with new clothes in her size, designer labels with price tags that made her wince. "Mrs. Crawford," Mrs. Winters said, and Autumn almost looked around for someone else before remembering that was now her name. "Mr. Crawford would like you to join him for dinner at 7. He said to tell you that some of his business associates will be joining you." Autumn's first test as the new Mrs. Crawford. "Of course. Thank you, Mrs. Winters." After the housekeeper left, Autumn sat on the edge of the enormous bed, reality crashing down on her. What had she gotten herself into? Could she really pull this off? These people would see right through her, a waitress pretending to be the wife of one of the wealthiest men in the city. A knock at the door interrupted her spiral of doubt. It was Damien. "May I come in?" he asked formally. "It's your house," Autumn replied. "It's your room," he countered, stepping inside but remaining near the door. "I wanted to check that you and Elliot are settling in." "The room is beautiful," Elliot is over the moon about his. She gestured to the closet. The clothes weren't necessary. They are if you're going to be convincing as my wife, Damien said matter-of-factly. The people coming tonight are important business partners. First impressions matter. I'll try not to embarrass you, Autumn said stiffly. Damien frowned. That's not what I meant. This is new for both of us. We need to present a united front. I know how to act, Mr. Crawford. Damien, he corrected. You should probably start using my first name considering we're married. Right, Damien. The name felt strange on her tongue. He moved further into the room, stopping a few feet from her. Tonight is just dinner with Lawrence and Brenda Peterson. He's a potential investor. They're bringing their son Hunter, who's around Elliot's age. What should I know about them? Lawrence is old money, very traditional. Brenda is his second wife, 20 years his junior. They'll be curious about you, the woman who managed to get Damien Crawford to settle down. And what should I tell them? The truth, as much as possible. That we met during an incident at your workplace. That we connected quickly. He hesitated. That you have a son I've grown fond of. Is that true? Autumn asked skeptically. Have you grown fond of Elliot? Something softened in Damien's expression. He's a good kid, smart, reminds me a bit of myself at that age. Before Autumn could respond, there was another knock at the door, followed by Elliot's excited voice. Mom, come see my room. It has a secret door. Damien opened the door and Elliot rushed in, barely acknowledging him in his excitement. Mom, there's a door in my closet that goes to a whole other room with beanbag chairs and books and everything. That sounds amazing, sweetie, Autumn said, smiling at his enthusiasm. Why don't you show your mum, Damien suggested. I think dinner will be ready soon and we have guests coming. Can I eat with you guys? Elliot asked, looking between them. Autumn looked to Damien, unsure of the protocol for business dinners. Of course, Damien said. Mrs. Winters set a place for you. The Petersons are bringing their son, Hunter. He's a little older than you, but I think you two might get along. Elliot grinned. Cool. I'm going to go pick out a shirt for dinner. After he darted out, Autumn turned to Damien. Thank you for including him. He's part of this arrangement too, Damien said simply. Besides, Lawrence Peterson values family. Seeing me embrace the role of stepfather will work in my favor. And there it was. The reminder that everything was calculated, every gesture part of the business arrangement. Autumn tried to ignore the slight disappointment she felt. Dinner that evening was Autumn's first glimpse into Damien's world. Lawrence Peterson was a distinguished-looking man in his 60s, with silver hair and an air of old-money confidence. His wife Brenda was a polished blonde who scrutinized Autumn with thinly veiled curiosity. Their son Hunter, 7 years old and dressed like a miniature businessman, regarded Elliot with the wariness of a child used to being the center of attention. So, Autumn, Brenda said as the first course was served, Damien tells us you two met during quite the dramatic circumstances. Autumn glanced at Damien, who gave her an encouraging nod. Yes, I was working at a convenience store when some men came in to rob it. Damien happened to be there and handled the situation with remarkable composure. How frightening for you, Brenda said, though her tone suggested she found the story more intriguing than concerning. It was, Autumn admitted, especially since my son was in the back room. And how long after this incident did you two decide to marry? Lawrence asked, his gaze shrewd. 6 weeks, Damien interjected smoothly. When you know, you know. He reached across the table and took Autumn's hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. His touch was warm, his eyes intent on hers as if they shared a genuine secret. For a moment, Autumn almost believed their own story. How refreshing, Lawrence said with a chuckle. I knew Brenda was the one for me the moment I met her. Brenda smiled tightly, then turned her attention to Elliot. And how do you like your new home, young man? Elliot, who had been quietly attempting to use the correct fork for his salad, looked up. It's awesome. I have a race car bed and a secret room, and everything. Hunter, who had been sulking beside his mother, perked up. A secret room? Can I see it? After dinner, if your parents say it's okay, Autumn suggested, grateful for the children's easy connection. As the evening progressed, Autumn was surprised to discover that she wasn't completely out of her depth. Years of managing difficult customers had given her a thick skin and the ability to make conversation with almost anyone. By dessert, she had even made Brenda laugh with a story about Elliot's first day of kindergarten. "You're quite the natural," Damien murmured as they walked the Petersons to the door later that evening. Lawrence was impressed. "With me?" Autumn asked skeptically. "With us," Damien clarified. "He said we make a solid team." The words sent an unexpected warmth through Autumn. A team. Despite the artificial nature of their arrangement, there was something appealing about that concept. After the Petersons left, Autumn went to check on Elliot, who had gone upstairs with Hunter to show off his room. She found him already in pajamas, being tucked in by Mrs. Winters. "Did you have a good time with Hunter?" she asked, sitting on the edge of his bed. Elliot nodded sleepily. "He's okay, kinda bossy, but he liked my toys." "That's good." She leaned down to kiss his forehead. "Sweet dreams, buddy." "Mum?" Elliot's voice stopped her as she reached the door. "Are we going to be happy here?" The question caught her off guard. "I think so, sweetie." "What do you think?" "I like it," he said thoughtfully. "And I think Mr. Damien is nice. He talks to me like I'm big, not little." "That is nice," Autumn agreed, touched by her son's observation. "Maybe he'll be like a real dad," Elliot murmured, his eyes already closing. "That would be cool." Autumn stood in the doorway, watching her son drift off to sleep. His innocent comment brought home the reality of their situation in a way nothing else had. To Elliot, this wasn't just a business arrangement or a year-long act. It was a chance at the family he'd never really had, and that realization terrified her. Because at the end of the year, when the contract was fulfilled and the money was paid, what would she tell her son then? 3 months into their marriage, Autumn was surprised by how easily she had adapted to life as Mrs. Crawford. The mansion no longer felt overwhelming, and she had developed a comfortable routine. Mornings were spent having breakfast with Elliot before Thomas drove him to his new private school, an opportunity Damien had insisted on as part of their arrangement. Afternoons were often filled with charity committee meetings or lunch appointments with the wives of Damien's business associates. It was a strange life, but not an unpleasant one. The hardest part was remembering that none of it was real. On this particular morning, Autumn sat in the garden with a cup of coffee, enjoying a rare moment of solitude. The fall air was crisp, and the landscaped grounds were a riot of autumn colors. She had just returned from dropping Elliot at school herself, something she insisted on doing at least twice a week to maintain some normalcy. "There you are," Mrs. Winters said, approaching with a cordless phone. "Mr. Crawford is on the line for you." Autumn took the phone with a smile of thanks. "Hello?" "Autumn." Damien's voice was formal as always. "I wanted to remind you about the Crawford Foundation Gala tonight. My grandfather will be there." Autumn. Tet tensed. In the 3 months of their marriage, she had met various members of Damien's family, but never his grandfather, the patriarch whose will had set their entire arrangement in motion. "I remember," she said. "Is there anything specific I should know about him?" "Maxwell Crawford is traditional. He values family above all else, which is why he put that marriage clause in his will." Damien paused. "He'll be watching us closely. We need to be convincing." "We've been convincing for 3 months," Autumn reminded him. "The Petersons practically think we're the perfect couple. Grandfather is different. He can spot a lie from a mile away." "Are you worried I'll slip up?" Autumn asked, feeling slightly offended. "No," Damien said quickly. "You've been exceptional. I just want you to be prepared. He'll ask personal questions, try to get a sense of our relationship." "I'll be ready," Autumn assured him. "What time?" "Should I be prepared to leave? The car will be ready at 7. Wear the blue gown, the one from the charity luncheon last month." After hanging up, Autumn couldn't help but smile wryly. Even their clothing was part of the performance. Later that day, as Autumn was helping Elliot with his homework in the kitchen, Mrs. Winters approached with a concerned expression. "Mrs. Crawford, there's a man at the front gate insisting on speaking with you. He says his name is Ryan Hayes." Autumn froze. Ryan, Elliot's father, the man who had abandoned them 3 years ago and rarely made contact except to make excuses about missed child support payments. "Mom, Elliot looked up from his math worksheet. Is Dad here? I don't know, sweetie. Let me go check. She turned to Mrs. Winters. Can you stay with Elliot for a moment? Of course, the housekeeper said with an understanding nod. Autumn hurried to the front of the house, her mind racing. What was Ryan doing here? How had he even found her? When she reached the front door, she could see Ryan through the glass panels, arguing with the security guard. He looked thinner than the last time she'd seen him, his once handsome face now weathered and hard. Taking a deep breath, she opened the door. Ryan. He turned, his scowl transforming into a charming smile. Autumn, there you are. This guy wouldn't. Let me in. It's fine, Michael, Autumn told the guard. I'll speak with him. Ryan sauntered up the steps, his eyes widening as he took in the grand facade of the mansion. So the rumors are true. My ex-wife married into the Crawford fortune. What are you doing here, Ryan? Autumn kept her voice low and steady. Can't a father visit his son? Ryan asked with feigned innocence. It's been a while since I've seen Elliot. 3 years, Autumn corrected coldly. And you've never once shown up without warning before. Ryan shrugged. Things change. I hear you're doing very well for yourself these days. How did you find me? Small world. My buddy works valet at the Grand Hotel. Said he parked a car for Mrs. Damien Crawford, who looked an awful lot like my ex-wife. Ryan's smile turned calculating. Quite the step up from waitressing, huh? Autumn crossed her arms. What do you really want, Ryan? Before he could answer, the sound of running footsteps came from inside the house, followed by Elliot's excited voice. Dad? Is that really you? Ryan's face lit up with what seemed like genuine affection. There's my little man. Elliot burst past Autumn and was swept up into Ryan's arms. You came to see me. Of course I did, buddy, Ryan said, hugging him. I missed you. Watching them, Autumn felt a familiar mix of anger and sadness. Ryan had always been good at the grand gestures, the surprise appearances, the extravagant promises. It was the day-to-day responsibilities of fatherhood he couldn't handle. Can Dad come inside? Elliot asked, looking hopefully at Autumn. She hesitated, reluctant to allow Ryan into her new life but unwilling to disappoint her son. For a little while, she conceded. We have an event to attend this evening. Ryan followed them into the mansion, openly gawking at the opulent interior. Nice place you've got here. Very fancy. Mrs. Winters appeared in the hallway, giving Ryan a suspicious once-over before addressing Autumn. Mrs. Crawford, shall I serve refreshments in the small sitting room? Yes, thank you, Autumn replied, still uncomfortable with the formality but playing her part. They settled in the sitting room, where Elliot eagerly showed Ryan his new handheld video game system, a gift from Damien on his first day of school. Wow. Looks expensive, Ryan commented, his tone implying more than mere observation. Damien got it for me, Elliot said proudly. He gets me cool stuff all the time. Damien, huh? You're on a first-name basis with your stepdad already. Autumn shot Ryan a warning look. Elliot, why don't you go ask Mrs. Winters if there are any cookies with those refreshments? Once Elliot was out of earshot, she turned to Ryan. Don't start. He's happy here. I can see that, Ryan said, leaning back against the plush sofa. Being rich seems to agree with him, with both of you. What do you want? Autumn asked again, her patience wearing thin. Ryan's casual demeanor slipped, revealing the desperation beneath. I'm in a bit of a financial bind, Autumn. I need some help. You mean you need money, she translated flatly. Just a loan, he insisted. 20,000. I've got a business opportunity, but I need startup capital. Autumn laughed bitterly. A business opportunity? Like the food truck that never materialized? Or the app you were developing that was going to make millions? This is different, Ryan argued. Besides, look around you. You married a billionaire. 20 grand is nothing to people like the Crawfords. It's not my money to give, Autumn said firmly. Come on, Autumn. For old time's sake. Ryan lowered his voice. For Elliot's sake. Don't you want his father to be successful? To be someone he can be proud of? The manipulation was so transparent that Autumn almost admired the audacity. If you want to be someone Elliot can be proud of, start by being present in his life. Pay your child support. Show up when you say you will. Ryan's expression hardened. So that's it? You're living in the lap of luxury while I'm struggling to make rent and you won't help me. That's right, Autumn confirmed. And I think it's time for you to leave. Fine. Ryan stood up, his charm completely gone now. But this isn't over. Autumn, I have rights, you know. I'm still Elliot's father. The threat hung in the air between them. Before Autumn could respond, Elliot returned with a plate of cookies, followed by Mrs. Winters. Look, Dad, chocolate chip your favorite, Elliot said, oblivious to the tension. Ryan forced a smile. Thanks, buddy, but I actually have to get going. I just wanted to stop by and see how you were doing. Elliot's face fell. You're leaving already, but you just got here. I know, I'm sorry. Ryan knelt to Elliot's level. But hey, now that I know where you live, I can visit more often. Maybe next time we can play with that cool video game together. Autumn bit her tongue, knowing the promise was empty, but unwilling to shatter her son's happiness. Promise? Elliot asked, his eyes hopeful. Promise, Ryan said, ruffling his hair. He stood and gave Autumn a meaningful look. Think about what I said. After Ryan left, Elliot was unusually quiet as he returned to his homework. Autumn sat beside him at the kitchen table, gently placing her hand on his. You okay, buddy? Elliot shrugged. I guess. Do you think Dad will really come back soon? Autumn chose her words carefully. I don't know. Your dad has a complicated life. He seemed different, Elliot observed with the perceptiveness that sometimes surprised her, like he was mad about something. Grown-ups get mad sometimes, Autumn said evasively. It doesn't mean he doesn't love you. Elliot seemed to accept this explanation and returned to his math problems, but Autumn remained troubled. Ryan's appearance couldn't be a coincidence, not after 3 years of near-total absence. The timing, just as she and Damien were establishing themselves as a couple in society, made her uneasy. That evening, as Autumn prepared for the gala, she debated whether to tell Damien about Ryan's visit. Their relationship was strictly business, but Ryan's thinly veiled threats could potentially impact their arrangement. She was still deliberating when Damien knocked on her bedroom door. Come in, she called, fastening a diamond earring, another prop for her role as Mrs. Crawford. Damien entered, already dressed in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. He stopped short when he saw her, and for a moment something like genuine appreciation flickered in his eyes. You look very appropriate for the evening, he said, his usual formality returning. Thank you, Autumn replied, turning back to the mirror to avoid his gaze. That was my goal. Damien cleared his throat. Mrs. Winters mentioned you had a visitor today, your ex-husband. So the decision had been made for her. Yes, Ryan showed up unannounced. I see. Damien's reflection in the mirror was carefully neutral. May I ask what he wanted? Money? Autumn said bluntly. $20,000 for some business opportunity. And what did you tell him? That it wasn't my money to give. She turned to face him. I hope that was the right answer. Damien's expression softened slightly. It was. Though if you'd asked, I might have considered it. For Elliot's sake, the statement surprised her. You would have given money to my ex-husband. I would have protected my wife's family if necessary, he corrected. It's what would be expected of me in a real marriage. There it was again, the constant reminder that nothing between them was genuine. Well, I handled it, Autumn said, reaching for her clutch. But I should warn you, Ryan made some vague threats about his rights as Elliot's father. I don't think he'll do anything, but he's desperate and unpredictable. Damien nodded, his expression turning serious. I'll have my lawyers look into it. If he becomes a problem, we'll address it. The calm efficiency with which he approached the issue was both reassuring and disconcerting. Autumn wondered if there was anything that could truly rattle Damien. Crawford's composure, are you ready? He asked, offering his arm in a practiced gesture. As I'll ever be, she replied, taking it. The Crawford Foundation Gala was held at the city's most prestigious hotel, a glittering affair attended by the elite of business and society. As Damien guided Autumn through the crowd, she was acutely aware of the eyes following them, some curious, some approving, some decidedly not. Damien, darling, a striking woman in her 50s approached, air-kissing Damien's cheeks before turning her shrewd gaze on Autumn. And this must be the new Mrs. Crawford. We've all been dying to meet you. Autumn, this is my Aunt Victoria, Damien introduced. My father's sister. It's lovely to meet you, Autumn said, extending her hand. Victoria barely touched it before turning back to Damien. Your grandfather is asking for you. He's by the fountain. As they made their way across the ballroom, Damien leaned closer to Autumn. Victoria never approved of my mother. She won't approve of you either, so don't take it personally. Noted. Autumn murmured, appreciating the warning. Maxwell Crawford was holding court near a decorative fountain, surrounded by what appeared to be business associates hanging on his every word. At 85, he was still an imposing figure, tall and straight-backed, with a full head of silver hair and piercing blue eyes that immediately reminded Autumn of Damien's. Those eyes turned on her as they approached, assessing her with unconcealed interest. Grandfather, Damien said with respectful deference, I'd like to introduce my wife, Autumn. Maxwell's handshake was firm, his gaze unwavering. So you're the woman who finally captured my grandson's heart. I was beginning to think he'd forfeit his inheritance out of sheer stubbornness. It wasn't about the inheritance, Grandfather, Damien said with a hint of tension in his voice. I simply hadn't met the right person. And now you have, Maxwell observed, still studying Autumn. Tell me, my dear, what is it you see in my grandson, besides the obvious financial advantages? The question was blunt, clearly designed to put her on the spot. Autumn felt Damien stiffen beside her, but she kept her composure. What I see in Damien, she began, choosing her words carefully, is a man who knows what he wants and who takes responsibility seriously. The night we met, he put himself at risk to protect complete strangers. That tells you everything you need to know about his character. Maxwell's eyebrows rose slightly, perhaps surprised by her candor. Interesting, and your son, Elliot, isn't it? How is he adjusting to his new life? Very well, Autumn said with genuine warmth. Damien has been wonderful with him. Has he? Maxwell looked intrigued. My grandson has never shown much interest in children before. Children respond to honesty, Damien interjected. Elliot and I understand each other. Maxwell laughed, a deep, rumbling sound. You mean he's not intimidated by you like everyone else is? As the conversation continued, Autumn was struck by the complex dynamic between Damien and his grandfather. There was respect there, certainly, but also a subtle power struggle, as if each was trying to prove something to the other. The evening progressed, and Autumn found herself separated from Damien as he was pulled into a business discussion. She was standing alone by the bar when a woman approached, elegantly dressed with a calculating smile. Autumn Crawford, the woman said. I've been hoping to meet you. I'm Olivia Blackwood. The name was vaguely familiar, but Autumn couldn't place it. It's nice to meet you. I'm surprised Damien hasn't mentioned me, Olivia said with a practiced laugh. We were quite close before you came along. Ah, one of Damien's ex-girlfriends, perhaps even the one who had betrayed him. He's very private about his past, Autumn replied neutrally. Yes, Damien always did play things close to the chest. Olivia sipped her champagne. That's why your whirlwind romance came as such a shock to everyone who knows him. Damien Crawford doesn't do spontaneous. People change, Autumn said, maintaining her pleasant expression. Sometimes they just need the right motivation. And what was your motivation, I wonder? Olivia asked, her tone deceptively light. The convenience store clerk who suddenly becomes Mrs. Damien Crawford, right when he needs to be married to secure his inheritance. Quite the fairy tale. Before Autumn could respond, Damien appeared at her side, placing a possessive hand at the small of her back. Olivia, he said coolly, I see you've met my wife. Yes, we were having a fascinating chat about fairy tales and convenient timing, Olivia replied with a smirk. Your grandfather seems pleased with your choice. He is, Damien confirmed. If you'll excuse us, I promised Autumn a dance. As he led her to the dance floor, Autumn felt tension radiating from him. Was that her? The one who… Yes, Damien cut her off, taking her in his arms as the orchestra played a waltz. Ignore anything she said. Olivia specializes in creating doubts and divisions. She implied our marriage was suspiciously timed, Autumn said, keeping her voice low as they moved across the floor. That I'm just using you for your money. Damien's hand tightened slightly on her waist. Everyone in this room married for advantage in some way. At least we're honest with each other about our arrangement. The truth of his words stung more than Autumn expected. Yes, their marriage was a contract, but hearing it stated so plainly while they danced, his hand warm against her back, his face inches from hers, created a strange dissonance. Your grandfather seems to believe we're genuinely in love, she observed. He wants to believe it, Damien corrected. The marriage clause in his will wasn't just about securing the family business. He genuinely wants me to find happiness. And that bothers you? Autumn asked, sensing there was more to the story. Damien was quiet for a moment, guiding her through a turn before answering. What bothers me is that he equates happiness with marriage and family, as if a person can't be complete without those things. Can they? The question hung between them as the music swelled. Damien's eyes met hers, and for a moment Autumn glimpsed vulnerability beneath his careful control. I thought so, he said quietly. Before you and Elliot. Before she could process what he meant, the music ended and the spell was broken. Damien stepped back, his expression returning to its usual controlled neutrality. We should mingle, he said. Grandfather is watching. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of introductions and carefully crafted responses. By the time they returned to the mansion, Autumn was exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally. Playing the role of the devoted wife while wrestling with increasingly complicated feelings was taking its toll. Mrs. Winters met them at the door. Elliot is asleep. He tried to wait up for you, but couldn't make it past 9. Thank you for looking after him, Autumn said gratefully. I'll go check on him. I have some work to finish, Damien said, already loosening his tie. Good night, Autumn. She watched him walk away, struck by the contrast between the man who had held her so intimately on the dance floor and this distant figure retreating to his office. In Elliot's room, Autumn sat on the edge of her son's bed, watching him sleep. His face was peaceful, innocent of the complicated adult world swirling around him. She brushed a curl from his forehead, her heart full of love and worry. Mom? Elliot's sleepy voice surprised her. You're home. Yes, sweetie. Go back to sleep. Did you dance with Damien? He asked, his eyes still closed. I did, she confirmed softly. Good, Elliot murmured. Dad never danced with you. You said that made you sad. Autumn's throat tightened with emotion. She had forgotten that conversation, a night when Elliot, then just 4, had asked why she looked sad watching a couple dance on television. Damien likes you, Elliot continued, drifting back toward sleep. He told me so when we were playing video games. He said you're the strongest person he knows. Autumn sat very still, absorbing this revelation. When did he tell you that? But Elliot was already asleep again, his breathing deep and regular. Autumn left his room and walked slowly down the hallway, pausing outside Damien's office. Light spilled from beneath the door, indicating he was still awake. She raised her hand to knock, then hesitated, unsure what she would even say. The strongest person he knows. What did that mean in the context of their arrangement? Was it just another line for Elliot's benefit, to strengthen the illusion of their marriage? She lowered her hand and continued to her own room, where she carefully removed the designer gown and diamond jewelry, the trappings of Mrs. Crawford that still felt like a costume. As she washed away her makeup, Autumn faced her reflection in the mirror. 8 months remained in their contract. 8 months until she would walk away with the money that would secure Elliot's future. That had been the plan, the only plan. So why did the thought now fill her with a vague sense of loss, the say? Next morning, Autumn woke to find a manila envelope on her bedside table. Inside was a legal document and a note in Damien's precise handwriting. I've had my lawyers draft papers giving you full custody of Elliot. If Ryan causes any problems, this will protect you both. Autumn stared at the papers, emotions warring within her. The gesture was practical, businesslike, and yet deeply thoughtful, exactly like the man himself. She found Damien in the kitchen, a rare sight in the morning as he usually left for the office before she and Elliot came down for breakfast. Thank you for this, she said, holding up the envelope. But how did you do it so quickly? Damien sipped his coffee, I had them prepared weeks ago after our conversation about Ryan's unreliability. Yesterday's visit just seemed like the right time to give them to you. Weeks ago. Long before Ryan's appearance. The revelation that Damien had been thinking about her and Elliot's security all this time left Autumn momentarily speechless. You don't have to use them, Damien added, misinterpreting her silence. But they're there if you need them. It's not that, Autumn said, finding her voice. It's just... Thank you for thinking of us. Something shifted in Damien's expression, a softening around the eyes, a slight relaxation of his perpetually straight shoulders. Elliot mentioned that Ryan rarely visits, he said. That must be difficult for both of you. It is for Elliot, Autumn acknowledged. For me, it's complicated. Ryan and I were young when we got married, too young to understand what we were getting into. And now, Damien asked, his gaze intent, do you regret it? The marriage? Sometimes, Autumn admitted, but never Elliot. He's the best thing that ever happened to me. Damien nodded, seeming to absorb this. He's a remarkable child, smart, resilient, like his mother. The compliment brought a flush to Autumn's cheeks. Last night went well, she said, changing the subject. Your grandfather seemed to approve of me. He did more than approve, Damien revealed. He called me this morning to say you're a vast improvement over that Blackwood woman and that I should hold on to this one. Autumn laughed. High praise indeed. From Maxwell Crawford? The Fae. Highest. Damien checked his watch. I should get to the office. We have the hospital charity luncheon tomorrow, do you remember? I do, Autumn confirmed. Elliot is excited about it. Mrs. Winters said there would be other children there. Yes, a family-friendly event. I'll try to be home early tonight to review the details with you. As he left, Autumn was struck by how domestic the exchange had been, like a real couple discussing their schedule, sharing information about their child. The line between their arrangement and reality seemed to be blurring more each day. Later that morning, as Autumn was going through mail in the small office she had claimed as her own, she came across an envelope addressed to Mrs. Damien Crawford in unfamiliar handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a typed message. I wonder what Maxwell Crawford would say if he knew his grandson's marriage was nothing but a business transaction. $100,000 transferred to the enclosed account keeps your secret safe. Autumn's. Blood ran cold. Someone knew about their arrangement. Someone who was willing to blackmail them to keep quiet. But who? Only Damien's lawyer, Victoria Reed, knew the truth. Unless Olivia Blackwood's smirking face came to mind. Her comments about convenient timing suddenly took on a more sinister meaning. Autumn reached for the phone to call Damien, then stopped. This could ruin everything. Not just their arrangement, but the relationship Damien had built with his grandfather. Maxwell Crawford had clearly been pleased to see his grandson finally settled down. If he discovered the truth now, the betrayal would be devastating. There had to be another way to handle this. Autumn stared at the blackmail note, determination hardening within her. She and Damien had a deal, a year of marriage in exchange for financial security for her and Elliot. She wouldn't let someone destroy that with threats. With newfound resolve, Autumn picked up the phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in months. Tina, it's Autumn, I need a favor. That evening, when Damien returned home, Autumn was waiting in his office, the blackmail note on his desk. We need to talk, she said as he entered. Someone knows about our arrangement. Damien's expression remained calm as he read the blackmail note, but Autumn noticed the slight tightening of his jaw, a tell she had come to recognize over the past months. How did you find this? He asked, his voice controlled. It came in the mail this morning, Autumn explained, addressed to me specifically. Damien set the note down carefully as if it might explode. I assume you have a theory about who sent it. Olivia Blackwood, Autumn said without hesitation. The things she said at the gala. She was fishing, trying to confirm her suspicions. It's possible, Damien conceded. But Olivia prefers more direct methods of attack. This seems too subtle for her. Then who else would know? Victoria Reed is the only other person aware of our arrangement, and she's your lawyer. Damien paced the length of his office, hands clasped behind his back. Not necessarily. Victoria could have spoken to someone. Or someone at the courthouse might have found something suspicious in our paperwork. What do we do? Autumn asked. We can't pay the blackmailer. It would never end. Agreed. Paying would only confirm our secret and lead to more demands. Damien turned to face her. We need to make our marriage appear so genuine that any accusation would seem like bitter slander. How do we do that? We go on the offensive, Damien said decisively. Increase our public appearances, show more affection, perhaps even discuss starting a family. Autumn's heart skipped a beat at the suggestion. A family? Isn't that extreme for a temporary arrangement? We wouldn't actually have to do it, Damien clarified. Just plant the idea in public consciousness. My grandfather would be thrilled, and no one would believe our marriage was fake if we were planning for children. The logic made sense, but something about the idea left Autumn feeling unsettled. And what about the blackmailer? Do we just ignore the threat? No. I'll have my security team investigate. In the meantime, we continue as planned. Damien hesitated, then added, This changes nothing between us, Autumn. Our arrangement stands 1 year and then you'll have everything we agreed upon. Right, Autumn said, ignoring the twinge of disappointment his words provoked. Of course. The next morning brought a fresh complication. As Autumn prepared to take Elliot to school, Mrs. Winters appeared with a troubled expression. Mrs. Crawford, there's a man at the gate again. Not Mr. Hayes this time. He says he's a reporter and wants to speak with you about your arrangement with Mr. Crawford. Autumn's blood ran cold. Did he say his name? Mark Stevens from City Buzz magazine. City Buzz, a local tabloid known for scandalous exposés and celebrity gossip. Exactly the kind of publication that would run with a story about a fake marriage. Tell him I have no comment, Autumn said firmly, and please let Mr. Crawford know immediately. As Mrs. Winters left to make the call, Elliot emerged from his room, backpack in hand. Ready for school, Mom? Autumn forced a smile. Actually, sweetie, I think Thomas is going to take you today. Mommy has some things to handle here. Is everything okay? Elliot asked, his perceptiveness catching her off guard. Everything's fine, she assured him, kneeling to his level. Just some grown-up stuff to deal with. 20 minutes later, after Thomas had safely taken Elliot to school, Damien burst through the front door looking more disheveled than Autumn had ever seen him. I came as soon as Mrs. Winters called, he said. Is the reporter still here? Security asked him to leave, Autumn replied. But he left this. She handed Damien a business card with a handwritten note on the back. I know the truth about your marriage. I'm giving you a chance to tell your side before the story runs. Damien's expression darkened. This is escalating too quickly. We need to find out who's behind this. I think I might already know, Autumn said. Remember I mentioned calling my friend Tina yesterday? She still works at the diner, and she told me Ryan has been bragging about having leverage over me, something that would make me change my mind about helping him. Your ex-husband is blackmailing you. Damien's voice was dangerously quiet. It makes sense, Autumn reasoned. He shows up asking for money, I refuse, and suddenly there's a blackmail note. He must have figured out or guessed that our marriage isn't genuine. But how would he get that information to a reporter so quickly? Damien questioned. Ryan has a cousin who works in publishing. Maybe there's a connection there. Autumn ran, a hand through her hair in frustration. I should have seen this coming. Ryan always was vindictive when he didn't get his way. Damien was silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he reached for his phone. I need to make some calls, we'll handle this. The we didn't escape Autumn's notice. Despite the crisis, there was something reassuring about not facing it alone. That afternoon, Autumn received a text from an unknown number. Meet me at Riverside Park, 2 p.m. Come alone if you want to stop the story. She showed it to Damien, who immediately shook his head. Absolutely not, it could be dangerous. It's a public park in broad daylight, Autumn pointed out. And if it is Ryan, he won't hurt me. He's many things, but not violent. I'm coming with you, Damien insisted. That would defeat the purpose of come alone, Autumn argued. Besides, if this is about money, I need to handle it my way, they argued for several minutes before reaching a compromise. Autumn would meet the blackmailer, but Damien's security team would be stationed discreetly throughout the park. At precisely 2 p.m., Autumn sat on a bench near the park's central fountain, trying to appear calm despite her racing heart. She didn't have to wait long before a familiar figure approached. "I knew you'd come," Ryan said, sitting beside her with unearned confidence. "You always were the responsible one." "What do you want, Ryan?" Autumn asked, cutting through his smugness. "I think I made that clear. 20,000 for my business venture, or your little marriage scam goes public." He smiled coldly. "I might not be the perfect husband, but I'm not stupid. The timing was too convenient. You suddenly marrying one of the richest men in the city right when he needs a wife to secure his inheritance. You're blackmailing me based on a hunch," Autumn said, trying to call his bluff. "That's low, even for you." "Not just a hunch." Ryan pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. Damien and Victoria Reed, in what appeared to be an intense conversation at a restaurant. "My buddy works at Le Bistro. Overheard them discussing the marriage arrangement a few days before your wedding. Said they mentioned contract terms and payment schedules." Autumn's heart sank. It wasn't just speculation. Ryan actually had evidence. "So what's it going to be, Autumn?" Ryan pressed. 20,000 sounds like a bargain to keep your secret." "And what about Elliot?" Autumn asked, her voice hardening. "Have you thought about what this would do to him? Finding out his mother's marriage is a sham, that the stability he's finally found isn't real." Ryan had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable. "The kid will be fine. He's adaptable." "You're willing to hurt your own son for money," Autumn said, disgust evident in her tone. "I'm not hurting anyone," Ryan defended. "I'm just asking for what I deserve. You're living in a mansion while I can barely make rent. Where's the fairness in that?" "Fairness?" Autumn laughed bitterly. "You abandoned us, Ryan. You chose to walk away from your responsibilities. Any hardship you're facing now is the result of your own choices." Ryan's expression darkened. "Fine, have it your way. I'm sure the tabloids will pay plenty for this story anyway." As he stood to leave, Autumn played her final card. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." "Why not?" Ryan scoffed. "Because I have something you value more than money. Your freedom." Autumn pulled out an envelope from her purse. "These are records of all the times you failed to pay child support. The missed visits, the broken promises. Damien's lawyers have prepared documentation for criminal charges of child abandonment and failure to provide." Ryan's face paled. "You wouldn't." "I would," Autumn said firmly. "If one word of this gets out, if you so much as hint to anyone about my marriage, these go straight to the district attorney." "You're bluffing," Ryan said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "Try me." Autumn stood, maintaining eye contact. "Oh, and the reporter you contacted, he works for Damien now. Turns out tabloid journalists aren't very loyal when offered enough money." Ryan stared at her, clearly trying to gauge her resolve. Finally, he cursed under his breath. "This isn't over, Autumn." "Yes, it is," she said with quiet confidence. "Go home, Ryan. Find a real job. Be better." As Ryan stormed off, Autumn let out a shaky breath, the adrenaline of the confrontation leaving, her trembling slightly. "So that was impressive," Damien's voice came from behind her. "I was supposed to stay back, but I couldn't resist witnessing that performance." Autumn turned to find him standing a few feet away, admiration clear in his eyes. "It wasn't a performance." "I meant every word." "I know," Damien said softly. "That's what made it impressive." They walked back to the car in comfortable silence. But as Thomas drove them home, Autumn couldn't help asking, "Did you really buy off the reporter?" Damien's lips quirked in a rare smile. "No, but I did convince him there was a much more interesting story about corporate corruption at his own publisher. It seems the CEO has been embezzling funds for years." "Is that true?" Autumn asked, genuinely curious. "Absolutely. I've had the information for months, waiting for the right time to use it." Damien's expression turned serious. "I protect what's mine." Autumn. The possessive declaration sent an unexpected warmth through her. In that moment, it was easy to forget their marriage was just a contract, set to expire in a matter of months. Over the following weeks, they implemented their plan to make their marriage appear more genuine than ever. They attended charity events hand in hand, were photographed having romantic dinners, and even gave a carefully scripted interview to the society pages about their whirlwind romance. The blackmail threat seemed to have dissipated, but something else was developing in its place, something neither of them had anticipated. One evening, as they returned from a benefit dinner, Autumn found herself reluctant to say goodnight. They had spent the entire evening engaged in easy conversation, laughing at shared jokes, and presenting such a convincing picture of a couple in love that Autumn had moments where she forgot they were pretending. "Would you like a nightcap?" Damien offered as they entered the mansion. "I have some papers to go over, but I could use the company." "I'd like that," Autumn accepted, surprised by how natural it felt to follow him to his study. As Damien poured them each a glass of whiskey, Autumn settled into one of the leather armchairs across from his desk. The room had become familiar. Over the months, a space where they often discussed schedules or planned their public appearances. "To a successful evening," Damien toasted, handing her a glass. "Was it?" Autumn asked. Maxwell seemed distracted. "He's worried about his health. The doctors found something during his last checkup," Damien revealed. "But he didn't want to discuss it tonight." "I'm sorry," Autumn said sincerely. "Is it serious?" Damien shrugged, but the gesture couldn't hide his concern. "He downplays it." "But yes, I think it might be." Autumn studied him over the rim of her glass. "You care about him a great deal, don't you? Despite the conditions he placed on your inheritance." "He's complicated," Damien admitted. "Controlling, traditional, sometimes infuriating, but he raised me after my parents' marriage fell apart, taught me everything I know about business and responsibility." "He loves you," Autumn observed. "That much is obvious when he looks at you." "Perhaps," Damien conceded, in his way. A comfortable silence fell between them. Autumn was struck by how much had changed since their first awkward interactions. The cold, businesslike man who had proposed their arrangement had gradually revealed layers of depth and complexity she hadn't expected. "Elliot asked me something interesting today," Damien said, breaking the silence. "Oh?" "He wanted to know if I loved you." Damien's eyes met hers across the room. "He said he hoped I did because you deserve someone who loves you." Autumn's heart skipped a beat. "What did you tell him?" "I told him that you are the most remarkable woman I've ever known," Damien said quietly, "that any man would be fortunate to have you in his life." "That doesn't answer his question," Autumn pointed out, her voice barely above a whisper. "No," Damien agreed. "It doesn't." The tension between them was palpable, an unspoken possibility hanging in the air, but neither seemed ready to address. It's getting late," Autumn said finally, setting down her empty glass. "I should check on Elliot." Damien nodded, the moment passing. "Of course. Good night, Autumn." "Good night, Damien." As she closed the study door behind her, Autumn leaned against the wall, her heart racing. What was happening to her? This wasn't part of the plan. Developing real feelings for Damien Crawford would only complicate things when their year was up. But as the days passed, Autumn found it increasingly difficult to maintain the emotional distance their arrangement required. Small moments kept catching her off guard. Damien helping Elliot with a science project, the three of them laughing over dinner, the way Damien's hand sometimes lingered on hers when they were alone. The line between pretense and reality was blurring, and Autumn wasn't sure she wanted to redraw it. 2 months before their contract was set to expire, Maxwell Crawford's health took a turn for the worse. He was hospitalized with heart complications, and Damien spent long hours at the hospital, clearly worried despite his attempts to appear stoic. "You should go home," Maxwell told him one evening, as Autumn entered the hospital room with fresh flowers. "Your wife needs you more than I do right now." "Autumn understands," Damien said, though he offered her a grateful smile for the visit. "Of course I do," Autumn assured, arranging the flowers on the bedside table. "How are you feeling today, Maxwell?" "Like an old man whose heart is reminding him of his age," Maxwell grumbled. "But better for seeing you, my dear. You've been good for my grandson, you know." "He's been good for me too," Autumn replied honestly. Maxwell's shrewd eyes studied her face. "Yes, I believe that's true, which makes what I'm about to say all the more difficult." Damien tensed beside her. "Grandfather—" "No, let me finish," Maxwell insisted. "I've lived long enough to recognize when I'm being deceived, even with the best of intentions." Autumn's heart sank. Had he discovered their arrangement? Was everything about to fall apart just months before completion? Your marriage, Maxwell continued, his voice weaker but still commanding, isn't what I expected when I included that condition in my will. Damien straightened, his expression carefully neutral. What do you mean? I mean, young man, that when I required you to marry before your 40th birthday, I wasn't trying to force you into a loveless marriage of convenience. Maxwell reached for Autumn's hand. I wanted you to find what your parents never had, a true partnership based on mutual respect and genuine affection. I don't understand, Damien said, though his tone suggested he did. Don't play dumb, Damien. It doesn't suit you. Maxwell coughed weakly. I've known from the beginning that your marriage was arranged. Victoria Reed keeps a terrible poker face. Autumn exchanged an alarmed look with Damien. Maxwell, let me finish, the old man insisted. What I didn't anticipate was watching you two actually fall in love despite yourselves. It's been quite entertaining, I must say. Silence filled the room as both Autumn and Damien absorbed his words. You're not angry? Damien finally asked. Angry? No. Maxwell shook his head slowly. Disappointed that you felt the need to deceive me, perhaps. But I understand why you did it. The company means everything to you, just as it did to me at your age. He turned his gaze to Autumn. And you, my dear, you took a considerable risk for your son's future. I respect that kind of maternal devotion. So what happens now? Damien asked, uncertainty coloring his voice for the first time since Autumn had known him. Now? Nothing changes, Maxwell smiled weakly. The condition has been met, technically, if not spiritually. The company is yours as stipulated. And our marriage? Autumn asked quietly. That, Maxwell said, his eyes twinkling despite his frail state, is entirely up to you two. But if an old man might offer some advice, don't let pride or fear prevent you from recognizing when you've accidentally found exactly what you need. The drive home from the hospital was filled with a charged silence. Autumn stared out the window, trying to process everything Maxwell had said. Had she really fallen in love with Damien? And more incredibly, did he have feelings for her too? He's known all along, Damien finally said, as Thomas pulled through the mansion gates. All this time we thought we were deceiving him, and he was just watching us. Does it change anything? Autumn asked cautiously. Legally, I mean. No, Damien confirmed. As he said, the condition has been met. The company remains secure. So our arrangement stands, Autumn said, trying to keep her voice neutral. 5 more months and then you take the money and leave, Damien finished, his tone unreadable, as agreed. Inside the mansion, they found Elliot waiting up for them, excited about a school project. We're doing family trees, he explained, spreading out a large poster board on the kitchen table. I need pictures of everyone. I already have some of me and Mom, but I need one of you too, Damien. Autumn saw the flicker of emotion cross Damien's face at being included in Elliot's family tree. I'm sure we can find one, Damien said, his voice gentle. Maybe from our wedding day? Perfect, Elliot beamed. And can I put Grandpa Maxwell too, since he's my step-great-grandfather? I think he'd like that very much, Damien said, ruffling Elliot's hair affectionately. As they helped Elliot with his project, Autumn was struck by how natural it all felt. The 3 of them together, a family in every way that mattered. The thought of it ending in a few months created a hollow feeling in her chest. Later that night, after putting Elliot to bed, Autumn found Damien in the garden, staring up at the star-filled sky. Penny, for your thoughts? She asked, joining him on the stone bench. I was thinking about what Grandfather said, Damien admitted, about us accidentally finding what we need. Autumn's heart raced. And? What do you think he meant? Damien turned to face her, his usual composure replaced by a vulnerability she'd rarely seen. I think he meant that sometimes the things we plan for aren't nearly as important as the things we never expected. Like a convenient marriage turning into something more, Autumn asked softly. Like a business arrangement giving me the family I never thought I wanted. Damien reached for her hand, his touch sending warmth through her. Autumn, these past 10 months have changed me in ways I never anticipated. You and Elliot, You've become essential to me. Essential to the image, to the company? Autumn pressed, needing clarity. Essential to my happiness, Damien replied without hesitation. When I think about you leaving in 5 months, taking Elliot with you, I can't breathe. I don't want our contract to end. Autumn's eyes filled with tears. What are you saying, Damien? I'm saying I love you, he declared, the words simple but profound. I love your strength, your integrity, your devotion to Elliot. I love the way you challenge me, the way you've brought warmth and laughter into this house. He took both her hands in his. I'm asking you to stay, not for the money, not for the contract, but because I want a real marriage with you. I want to be a real family with you and Elliot. Autumn was overwhelmed, joy and fear battling within her. I'm afraid, she admitted. What if this isn't real? What if it's just the situation, living together, pretending to be in love, that's created these feelings? Do you love me? Damien asked directly. Not the money, not the security. Me? Autumn closed her eyes, searching her heart for the truth. When she opened them again, she knew with certainty. Yes, I've been fighting it for months, but yes, I love you. Relief and joy transformed Damien's face. Then that's all that matters. The situation might have brought us together, but what we've built is real. What about our contract? Autumn asked. The money? The money is yours regardless, Damien assured her. I'll honor every detail of our original agreement if that's what you want. But I'm hoping you'll consider an amendment, one that removes the expiration date. Autumn laughed through her tears. That sounds suspiciously like a proposal. Maybe it is, Damien said, his smile reflecting the starlight. I've never been good at romance, Autumn, but I know what I want, and that's a lifetime with you and Elliot. I think Elliot would like that, Autumn said softly. He already considers Q family, you know. And you? Damien asked, a hint of his old uncertainty showing through. What would you like? Instead of answering with words, Autumn leaned forward and kissed him. A real kiss, full of the emotion she'd been suppressing for months. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, she smiled. I think I'd like to stop pretending and start living, Mr. Crawford. 1 year later, the Crawford mansion was transformed for a celebration. White flowers decorated the garden and twinkling lights hung from the trees. Guests mingled on the lawn, champagne glasses in hand as they awaited the main event. On the patio steps, Damien stood with Elliot, now 7 years old and proudly wearing a miniature tuxedo that matched his stepfather's. Do you have the rings? Damien asked, pretending to be concerned. For the 10th time, yes, Elliot giggled, patting his pocket. Mum's going to be here soon, right? Any minute now, Damien confirmed, checking his watch. The crowd quieted as music began to play. At the far end of the garden, Autumn appeared, radiant in a simple white gown. Unlike their first wedding, this celebration was filled with genuine joy and anticipation. As she walked toward them, Autumn reflected on the journey that had brought them here. What had begun as a business transaction had evolved into the greatest love story of her life. The woman who had once been too afraid to believe in second chances was now embracing one wholeheartedly. Maxwell Crawford, looking frail but determined, waited at the altar to officiate the ceremony, a role he had insisted on despite his doctor's objections. I told you, he whispered to Damien as Autumn joined. That marriage clause was the best gift I ever gave you. You were right, grandfather, Damien conceded, his eyes never leaving Autumn's face. For once, I'm glad I didn't get my way. As they exchanged vows for the second time, real vows from the heart, Autumn knew that some arrangements, no matter how calculated at the start, could blossom into something authentic and beautiful. The contract that had brought them together was long expired, but the love that had grown in its place was just beginning, a love built on trust, respect, and the unexpected joy of finding family in the most unlikely circumstances. When Maxwell pronounced them husband and wife, Damien pulled Autumn close, whispering against her lips, "No expiration date this time." "Promise?" she asked, smiling up. "At him I promise," he replied, sealing his vow with a kiss as Elliot cheered and the guests applauded. Their fake marriage had ended, but their real love story was just beginning. The end.